Welcome back to Beagle Eye Vision! Oh man, it's a good day today. Chilling with Squirt Dog. I got some W in my cup. We're gonna get some more knowledge on episode number 41, Subversive Use of Sacred Symbolism, part 3? I believe it's part 3. It's scrolling through the title right now. Yeah, part 3. Got it right. Alright, we're still at Thicket Excavations. I'm going to head to Good Neighbor. I need some more ammo. I also need to go to Diamond City to get some more ammo. We'll see where we go from there. As usual, no plans, just roaming around, killing creatures. It's going to be a good time. Thanks for tuning in.
That's one of the things about religion that we have to remember when we're talking about that makes it such a hot topic issue is because we're talking about law. Who gets to be God? Who gets to be God's deputies? Who is the Most High? Who is the divine authority? It's all about the claim to the Most High. The only way that somebody can be higher than us is if we give away our power. Because there's nobody, we're all equal. But we're not equal in our knowledge, so ultimately I think it does have to be a hierarchy, but it has to be a cooperative hierarchy like a bee colony. It's about what our value system is, what we care about.
Hive Mind. This is the second part of a 3-hour show which was recorded February 22nd, 2021. I am your host Nate Cap, joined by co-host Brandon Martin. Welcome to the 41st CubbyWhole podcast, where important topics are unveiled, discussed, and tested. Our website is CubbyWhole.com. That's CubbyWhole.com. As of now, this show comes out every Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific time, and please make sure to start at podcast number 1 if this is your first time hearing this show. There will be slides for today's show, so please make sure to go to the podcast part of the CubbyWhole website under episode 41 to follow along. And as I said, this is a continuation of the last show where we talked about the science of symbolism, the subversive use of symbolism, especially the subversive use of stellar symbolism. In the second part, we go further into the subversive use of stellar symbolism, including bear symbolism, the all-seeing eye, the axe, and the facies symbolism. And towards the end of the show, we introduce Freemasonry, what it is and what it is not. So I'm going to start right where we left off, and sorry if I sound a little winded, especially in the beginning of this episode. I've definitely been a little, worn down from life lately, so, it is what it is, but it's an awesome show, so you'll be glad you made it all the way through. And we're going to go ahead and start right here. Cool. Okay, we are back, and Brandon is on fire with the mythos and subversive symbolism. I mean, it's just incredible the work that you've been putting out lately, and I felt like you did a very great job explaining all that about the stellar subversive symbolism. And I know that you could go on and on a lot more, but it's a vast topic, and I think you did a pretty fantastic job. I know you're going to explain more, but you're doing great so far. So,
well, thank you for that. It's definitely a hard topic to cover.
For sure.
It takes many, many years of research, and it's multiple lifetimes of research, honestly. But yeah, I'll continue on here. And this ties in with the last symbol, the symbol of the gavel. The next slide, we have the bear. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the symbol of the gavel ties in with Ursa Minor, which is the little bear. And that's why we named this show the CubbyWhole, because it has to do with the little bear and all of the knowledge that the ancients had, especially the stellar cult. They preserved it and venerated it into the northern polar constellations and the 7 pole stars of Ursa Minor. So I thought it would be crucial to bring up that the bear is also symbolic of the gavel. And I have a very, very good image of a bear on the slide, and I just love the way this bear looks. It almost looks like his head is a heart, and I feel like it's symbolic of true care. So the meaning and interpretation, simply, of bear symbolism is strength, endurance, power, spiritualism, kingship, peace, freedom, harmony, gnosis, perseverance, courage, care, and willpower. And I'm sure we can all see why these things are associated with bears because of on grounds of likeness of how they behave. They're very strong. They have lots and lots of endurance. They have power, but this is also about spiritual power. The reason why it's tied in with spiritualism, that mythology that I was explaining earlier on. So yeah, there's a lot to that when it comes to spiritualism.
Yeah,
King.
there's.
Go
ahead.
No, go ahead.
Also, on the grounds of likeness, when a cub is able to climb the tree, the spirit, it's spiritually mirrored as the bear climbing up to the top of the tree of knowledge, the tree of life, and the bear is rising up the tree, and the bear is, and the bear is. You think about the word to bear something is to hold something, so to bear the spirit.
That's right.
So.
To bear the knowledge as well, to hold the knowledge. And I find it interesting that the bear comes out of a cave from hibernation, and that cave ties in with Plato's allegory of the cave, coming out of darkness into light. But it's also, a cave is also a place of sanctuary. It's a place of security where you can grow and learn from at a certain level if you use it properly, because that's where the hermits would go to learn, that's where a lot of the ancient shamans go to, breathe in the entheogenic compounds to, induce higher states of consciousness. There's these stories where they would put their seers, the children who were supposedly going to be the seers, in caves for 7 years, which I found very interesting. So that, the seers were the people who could see into the spiritual realm. So that darkness is associated with that spiritual realm, and they were trying to train them to be able to see more clearly by putting them into those caves for that long. So it was a rite of initiation into the spirit knowledge. So the bear is tied in with kingship. That's also because it's tied up with the highest of high, and we find that there is a great allegorical reference in the movie The Golden Compass where the bear, the northern polar bear, is associated with kingship, and he has to reclaim his throne by proceeding on a journey to the north with his companion, the sacred feminine principle who carries the moral compass, the compass that guides the way, which is Freemasonic, and it also has a lot to do with symbolic literacy, to lead him back to his kingdom and for him to raise upright into his proper place of kingship. So I would highly recommend watching that film to get an idea of some of the symbolic meaning behind the bear, especially the polar bear. The idea of the bear correlating to kingship also has a very ubiquitous nature with the Arthurian legend. Now, I'm not going to completely cover the Arthurian legend here, but I just want to give a little bit of etymological breakdown of the word Arthur, which literally means the bear. So Uth or Arth is a title that was given to those who had raised their consciousness into a high point of being, especially in the mystery traditions. So we have Uth or Arth, which means the bear, and this ties up with the entire hero mythos that we've been speaking about. And when it comes to the hero mythos, we do have to recognize that the king and the land are directly related to each other. If the king gets sick, then the land gets sick, which then gives the hero the call to his journey or to his quest, where he has to seek out one of the sacred items, such as the Holy Grail, to bring fertility back to the land or the king. That way the land can become healthy again. There's many different versions of this story, so like I said, I'm not going to get into all the details of this, but it is crucial to understand that the Arthurian legend is solar currently, but the Knights of the Round Table, which is the circle dot, definitely has to do with the stellar cult. So it is a solar cult overlap in my point of view, or it's a means of preserving the stellar cult symbolism and the mystery traditions through the solar cult by bringing it down into the Arthurian legend. And I highly recommend that people study the Arthurian legend because it is one of the most important mythologies that we do need to have in our arsenal to further understand how the mythos evolves. So there's a lot to that when it comes to kingship. But yeah, the bear is symbolic of kingship, of being your own king, you know, being your own monarch, not being a ruler of others. So yeah, internal monarchy is how I would explain that. But it's also about peace. It's about tranquility, because bears can be very peaceful if you watch them in their natural habitat. They're extremely cohesive and in harmony with where they are living at. And, you know, I mean, take Winnie the Pooh, for example. The bear there, he's a very peaceful bear, you know, just go lucky. And there's the cartoon The Little Bear, obviously. There's all kinds of uses of this bear symbolism in cartoons specifically, which I find very interesting. And then it also ties in with the honey with you know, Winnie the Pooh. Obviously, there's a lot to the honey symbolism, and maybe we can break that down in the future. I know you've talked on it a little bit, especially since we have the honeycomb as our background.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, bears love the honey.
Right, no doubt. And that ties in with the symbolism of the sun as well. But it also represents freedom and sovereignty, you know. It represents freedom because the gavel represents true spiritual freedom. And so the bear represents true spiritual freedom as well. And like I said, it represents harmony, being in harmony with nature. It represents gnosis because it gets tied in with the ancient knowledge, the true experience of coming into the light of that knowledge that we need, coming into the light of truth and love and the one great spirit's will, if you want to look at it that way. Bears are, you know, persistent with whatever they do, with their endurance, but they persevere no matter what. So this is about their strength, and that's why I chose to put perseverance on there. They are, you know, they will never give up, and this is something that goes along with that idea of eternity, never changing, you know, never backing down, never giving up. So this also ties in with the next example and symbolic association to courage, you know. Bears are always symbolic of courage. There are many animals that overlap with all these, obviously, but, you know, I find it very, very important when it comes to the spiritual meaning behind all the animal and zoo type psychological associations. But the bear is correlated to care as well, because we have to have our true care to understand these things, and we have to have the true care to dive deep enough into understanding our origins and understanding symbolism and understanding the nature of ourselves and the realm we're existing in, so that we can create real change, which ties in with will, because it has to do with willpower, the power to push forward, you know, the power to create change, creation. So that all ties in with the double-headed axe symbolism that I was just talking about. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of the bear here.
It's interesting that you said what you were talking about with the cartoons, because I was, immediately when you were saying care, I was thinking of the Care Bears, and they have the symbols on their bellies.
Right, that's funny. I meant to mention that, actually, the Care Bear cartoon. Yeah, there's a lot of symbolism in the Care Bears, and, you know, like his head is looked like, or the symbol I chose, the bear looks like a heart. So I found that.
And they're always in the clouds.
Yep, they're always in the clouds, and they're always in the sky. So I do find that very, very profound, that symbolism there. I've always thought about that. And it's a great cartoon, too. It has a very good moral principle into that. So
That's true.
When it comes to the double-headed axe and the bear symbolism, it also ties in with natural law. This has a lot to do with the laws of nature, because that's what we're studying. And this is one place that we preserved those laws and those sciences, was within the symbol of Ursa Minor and the symbol of the double-headed axe. So the subversive uses of this, and I have 3 examples of this. And, you know, people might have contention with 2 examples that I give here, but I do think that it's subversive and being used in a negative way. The first example is something I spoke upon in the Cult of Bill section, which is in the market. We do have the bull market and the bear market. The bull market represents an ascension of materialism and monetary wealth, and the bear market represents the decrease of monetary wealth, but it's also the decrease of spiritualism when it goes down. So if the bear comes up, then we have a decrease on the other side, which is materialism. And what we really need is a balance between both spiritual and material, obviously, because we are spirits in the flesh. But if you go and look at the image, you see the bear and the bull standing off against each other. And this is the battle between the solar and the stellar cult. And currently, the solar cult is reigning dominion over this world. You know, it is absolutely controlling almost every aspect of this world. So it is definitely a subversive use of the bear and the gavel symbolism, because all things 7 are the little bear, and that ties in with the 7 pole stars, and that ties in with spiritualism. So, you know, I just wanted to throw that in there. The other 2 examples is the Chicago Cubs. You know, so I have an example of sports teams here using this symbolism. And it has a big C with the bear in the middle of that C. So that kind of symbolically, to me, looks like see the bear, you know, like see the highest of the high, as in SEEC. So I find that pretty interesting with that. But you have a cub, and the C also kind of looks like a cubby. You know, it looks like a place that the bear might, you know, reside, or the knowledge might reside. And it's the little bear because it's a cub, obviously. And then you have the Chicago Bears, which is a big bear, which definitely ties in with Ursa Major more so than Ursa Minor. So, you know, it's very important to distinguish those. But I do feel that it's important to put this in here because we're talking about both of these teams here. And this bear just looks absolutely vicious. It also has the sea with the bear coming out of the sea, like he's coming out to raise some hell, you know, he's coming out to tear some people up. So I feel that there's a lot of symbolism being portrayed here with these teams, and we find this in a lot of sports, obviously, where they're using associative magic symbols to influence people with this knowledge. So another thing I want to point out, and the main reason why I brought up these 2 sports teams, is because they are in the north. They are in the northern part of the country, which correlates to that idea of the northern pole star and the northern polar constellations. And they're also in the center. They are somewhat in the middle of the country, being this ties in with the middle pillar and also that middle path. So these are 2 other symbolic associations to these 2 teams, and this is not a coincidence that they are in the north, they are in the center, and they are bears, the big bear and the little bear, Ursa Minor and Ursa Major.
Iron strapped on.
Hey, Charlie.
So Nate, do you have anything you would like to add onto that bear symbolism? Because I know you're pretty well versed in that as well.
Let's see what you got.
I mean, you've pretty much said everything. I mean, not everything, but you said everything I was thinking of. I just know that bear symbolism is an unfoldment for a long time, because when you understand, especially the little bear as the Little Dipper or Ursa Minor, then you're getting into understanding that it is Polaris, and you think about the bear does not have a tail, but when you look at the constellation of the little bear, you see, the tail is connected to the perceived fixed star Polaris. And what I take from that is because Polaris is the most high, because the little bear is the most high, I look at it as the bear with no tail as a tall tale that is told as a allegory. It's symbolic to help us understand that, this is a tall tale that has to be told for us to find the truth that is held within this symbol, within this constellation. And this is, in my opinion, it is one of the greatest, if not the greatest tale that's ever been told, because to try to get as close as you can to the Most High or to Source is a lifelong journey, if not multiple lifetimes.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you brought the tail up. I do find that very interesting. Like you said, that bears don't tend to have long tails. And what you have found through green language and through the law of correspondence and synchronicity there, I feel is dead on. I feel that is exactly what that is about at a certain level. I also know that, Africa doesn't have bears, so most likely this symbol was the symbol of the jackal at one point in the Egyptian mythos. So there's an association between the African gray wolf, the jackal, and the bear. And I feel that maybe the zoo type symbols got mixed up and eventually evolved, after we had started to put different distinguishing characteristics of species as we moved out of Africa and as we exodused out of Africa. So the bear symbolism was not necessarily the first zoo type that was used to venerate the northern polar constellation, which is very important to understand. But I do feel that before that it was the jackal. And I find that very interesting because it's always said that dogs are man's best friends. So there's some idea there that this knowledge is man's best friend as well, that this is how we befriend God as well, like there's a very symbolic association there with that. And I feel that one thing, this is my contention as well, the reason why dogs were considered to be man's best friend is because I believe that the first animal that ever came from nature to welcome the human race into nature's existence, to actually live with the tribe, was the African gray wolf. And we see a lot of symbolism with jackal, and the jackal gets associated with the spirit realm, just like the bear does in the Egyptian mythology, specifically in the solar mythology. Later on, when he's anthropomorphized as Anubis, and he becomes the spirit guide, the one who walks you through the Dua, or walks you through the spirit realm. And he's often seen depicted with Ma'at, the great judge, the great architect of the universe, the which could be looked at also as the gavel in an associative thinking. So there's a lot to that. And I hope to open up the jackal stuff in the future, because Jack means the sun, and then El means God as well. So there is some solar stuff going on with that at some level. But Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting as well. But I don't think the Egyptians called it a jackal. Obviously, that's a later terminology. So, yeah, there's a lot to the jackal and the bear and the long tail because dogs have long tails, and they even say that there was a species of dog bear at one point, and there was a possibility that there could have been a dog bear that existed that in Africa at one point. Now, my research hasn't turned up enough evidence of that. You can hear my dog in the background sneezing now. He must have caught a whiff of something. Oh, Hermes. But yeah, the dog bear was pretty interesting when I did research into that. But I haven't found an extreme amount of evidence to say that these stellar people existed around the same time that the dog bear existed, or the canine bear, because they weren't called dogs, they weren't domesticated. But you get my point with that.
Yeah, it's really interesting to find. Like, I found a photo of a bear that was shaved, and it looked just like a dog.
Oh, right?
And
yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's very complicated, all this stuff, and we're talking about very heady topics here that take a long time to really understand. So I'm just hoping to whet people's appetites with this. And, I want to continue on and move through the next symbol here, which is the all-seeing eye symbol of the stellar mythos, which is so important to understand. And these all three connect to each other: the bear, the double-headed axe or the gavel, and the all-seeing eye. So if you move to the next slide with us, I have the all-seeing eye, which I have put in ultraviolet or, like a purple color to represent the crown chakra as well, even though that usually the all-seeing eye is symbolic of the third eye chakra. I'm putting it on the crown color because this is about the all-seeing eye of the divine, not the individual, because we are seeking to become as close to the one great spirit as possible, but not to be it in its place. So our all-seeing eye is our third eye, which is lower, than the crown, but the all-seeing eye of the universe would be the crown, in my point of view. That's my point of view on that. That's my opinion on that. So the meaning and interpretation of the all-seeing eye represents God, the creator, divinity, source, light, knowledge, truth, intelligence, sovereignty, and enlightenment. And, I'm sure most people that listen to this episode have some knowledge about the all-seeing eye. But the reason why I bring this up here is because we find that the all-seeing eye is normally associated with the sun. The origins of the all-seeing eye far predate that of the solar cult mythology, where we see the eye associated to the movements of the sun. Now, it is true that the eye is still associated within the solar cult to a certain degree, because it does give us light or sight, things that allow us to see. It brings in the sight in the material world. But in the stellar, the grand all-seeing eye, or the one true all-seeing eye is what I should term it as, is the eye that sees both the material and the spiritual. And it is very important to understand when it comes to this. So, the stellar cult first venerated into the southern polar constellations with the zoo type, the jackal. This was known as Set, who was the first primary deity of the stellar cult. From the perspective of the Nile Valley, the ancient comedians could see the northern and southern polar constellations, which were seen as the two great eyes of God, or of the one great architect. As they exodus out of Africa, the southern polar constellation, that of Set, fell below the line of the horizon. As this happened, they proceeded to see Horus, the northern polar constellation, rise into the heavens as the one great deity, or the ruler of reality, which I even have issues terming that the ruler. So we probably shouldn't even use that word there. But they seen and venerated this as the one grand architect of the universe. This is the origin story of Set versus Horus, before it was venerated into the Eastern equinox and the autumnal equinox progression of the sun, where Horus is seen on the eastern horizon, who battles Set on the western horizon. Before we started to put a finer point on the celestial movements and a finer point on time, we had the association of the north and the south, of life and death, up and down. The north was associated to the material realm, whereas the south was associated with the spiritual realm. The south was associated to the spiritual realm because it is the unseen aspects of reality. So this corresponds to the night sky as well, because the night sky was associated to the spiritual realm. But it is when the realm of the spirit is visible to us here in the material realm. So it becomes physically visible to us. But before that, anything that was unseen, where, let's say, the sun travels underneath the planet, to them, they would think that the sun was dipping down below the planet or below Terra. They would consider that to be the journey into the duat, or the journey into the spirit realm. This correlates to why the northern polar constellation gets tied up with the idea of materialism, even though it is in the night sky, or why Horus gets correlated to materialism, especially when he is transferred over to the mythology of the solar cult, where Horus becomes the sun in the day sky, whereas Set has to do with the spiritual realm. And this ties directly into the jackal mythology with the anthropomorphic figure of Anubis, who is the spirit guide through the duat. So when that southern pole star sank below the horizon and the North Star rose above into the highest point, it became seen as the one eye of the great universal architect or God. One of the main reasons why this was so relevant to the ancients' minds is because all things in the night sky circled around this center point.
Alright, I'm going to take a break right there. We will be right back. Sorry, that episode was kind of boring. It wasn't too much excitement, but I am trying to kill time, let the creatures regenerate. I have been killing a lot of them. Let the creatures respawn, like how that raider just kind of spawned literally in my face earlier in the episode. That was awesome. But thank you if you made it this far. Stay tuned, and gonna keep grinding. I'll find an interesting location to go once I unload all this junk and get this armor out of my inventory. But thanks again if you made it this far. Stay tuned and stay golden.